The internet is filled with millions of small groups that are normally uninteresting to outsiders such as myself. One of these uninteresting groups would be a Facebook group dedicating to reading romance novels. One day, a member of this reading group would decide to fake their own death and eventually reveal that they were alive all along. This hoax would thrust the group into the spotlight, bringing the attention of everyone within the romance genre community and even drawing the attention of many outside of it. This story begins with an indie romance author named Susan Meachen. She would describe herself as an author of perfectly flawed romances. Susan would find limited success self-publishing her books on Amazon, and for the most part they were relatively well received. Susan would go on to found a reading group called The Word on Facebook. This group would be mainly dedicated to the romance genre, having many indie authors and readers in it. Over time, many of them would become online friends and support each other through times of trouble. They would even raise over $1,700 for Susan's husband's surgery. Over time, Susan would discuss her mental health problems and her mental illness, specifically bipolar disorder, with this reading group. One of the issues Susan would claim to face would be online trolls harassing and bullying her, though it's unclear if this was bullying and harassment or simply someone providing criticism. Either way, it would affect Susan deeply to the point where she would leave the reading group community and stop writing. She would describe her job as an indie author as one of the most vicious jobs she's had for the least amount of money. After Susan's disappearance, the book club would continue to exist until a month later, Susan's daughter, on Susan's account, would announce that Susan had passed away. Through Susan's account, Susan's daughter would advertise Susan's final book. It would become known that Susan had taken her own life, and this would send the romance community into a frenzy. Many in the romance community would begin blaming each other for being the cause of Susan's death. One of the main figures being blamed in this situation was Samantha Cole, another indie romance author. In memory of Susan, they would continue to run the Facebook group and keep it alive. Many would comment how much they missed Susan in various messages. This group would even talk about Susan on the anniversary of her death, discussing how much they missed her. One indie author for the Bully King anthology would even make a dedication to Susan in their book. The dedication would read, "For Susan Michen, an author of what she called perfectly flawed romances, the world is a little less bright without her. Words can hurt, but they don't have to. Words can also heal. Let's keep bullying where it belongs, in fiction." Susan's daughter would remain active on Susan's account, asking for help for editing and giving cover designs for Susan's last book. They would eventually receive the help they needed and publish Susan's last book on Amazon. Over time, Susan's daughter would actively complain on Susan's account that the books were not selling anymore and that they needed to sell more. At one point, they would even hire a personal assistant to help sell Susan's books. After hiring a personal assistant, Susan's daughter would then threaten to take Susan's books off Amazon if people didn't buy them. But years later, members of the reading group couldn't devote the time needed to run this Facebook group. A member going by the name of T.N. Steele would offer to take over the group from the existing members. Little did everyone know was that T.N. Steele was actually Susan on a different account. She would manage this account for a few more months until January of 2023, when she would reveal that she was still alive. She would say that she debated how to do this a million times and still not sure if it's the right thing or not. She would return saying, "Let the fun begin." The T.N. Steele account would be closed, telling people to go follow Susan's main account now. The romance community would riot at the thought that she's been faking her death and watching everyone grieve using an alt account. People would also begin asking where the money went when they donated to a charity for her funeral cost. Susan would deny that there was any fundraiser for her funeral, but one member was insistent that they donated and many others donated to her funeral arrangements. Susan Cole would write a long post on Facebook about her encounter and her experience with Susan's death and reveal that she had been faking it. Samantha would confront Susan in private messages and post them so everyone could see. Samantha would ask what's going on, and Susan would say that she simply wants her life back. Susan would explain that she was hospitalized and her family announced her death as a way to help her get better because she was being bullied online. Samantha would be outraged by this response because of how deeply it affected everyone that Susan knew. Samantha would then question if Susan even had children due to how much Susan has lied over the years now. Susan would then blame her family, saying she had no control over them and that she was in the hospital fighting for her life. Samantha would question why she would wait 2.5 years to reveal that she was still alive and accuse her of trying to use this as an opportunity to sell her books. Susan would then counter this by saying her books haven't sold at all and she stayed silent because she was working for a psychiatrist. This would be effectively the end of Susan's and Samantha's conversation. Samantha Cole would then go on to make an almost half-hour video discussing what had happened in this community, how it affected her as being blamed for Susan's death, and how she is now denouncing Susan for what she's done. Mainstream media would pick up on Susan's story about how she faked her death and even write numerous articles about her. Eventually, it would be discovered that Susan had been on TikTok this whole time while she was faking her death. Susan would then go onto Twitter saying, "I'm back, baby. The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated." She would then tweet, "Are we having fun yet?" and plug her last book. Susan would continue to receive private messages, and to one she would respond, "Honey, be mad all you want. Look on the internet, my name is plastered everywhere. This was all planned out from day one, and now my books will be sold everywhere. I can say my daughter got the money because you have no proof it was me. So go to the community and cry about it all you want. But the truth is my plan worked, and now you will be unfriended and blocked. I heard Netflix is calling to do a movie about me. So call me crazy all you want. I'm brilliant." Susan would even begin receiving praise for being the final girl boss for getting all this attention by faking her death. Susan would then go on to complain on Twitter that this is what she has to deal with people bullying her all over again, saying this is her vindication. She was then expecting an apology from the romance community. For right now, people are taking it in their own hands by one-starring her books. Currently, it's unknown if Susan will face any repercussions for her actions. Based on Susan's statements admitting that this was all part of her brilliant plan, it can be assumed that she had access to her account immediately after the announcement of her death, whether or not it's true that her daughter had taken over initially. It would seem that Susan, under the identity of her daughter, was pushing book sales using her death as a motivator for her audience to buy as many as possible. She would receive free editing services and cover art, and probably received a boost in sales initially when she was announced dead. She would realize that in the long term this was not a great idea, as the sales would eventually stop. Even though she's returning to her previous identity and may be publishing books in the future, it's unlikely that her author career will survive this controversy. In the end, whatever her plans for this hoax were, it seems unlikely to pan out into anything bigger, even though she may be claiming that she has a deal with Netflix. In my opinion, Susan's a great tale as an example of how shocking and shameless people can be on the internet in the pursuit of fame and fortune. And no matter how bad someone is online, there will always be someone trying to justify their actions as a positive. In the end, all we can do is watch these people and document their actions so they're not forgotten as they spiral down. And along the way, we might get some laughs out of them about how absurdly terrible people they are. As always, thank you for watching, and consider subscribing and checking out my other documentaries. And I want to give a special shout out to all my members that have joined this channel. Thank you for supporting it.